what I'm here to talk about today is teaching our classes. So it's really a broader kind of, space, but clearly understanding that things we do, everything Felicia said, our code book for our intro class is full of mistakes. In part because we did not take a decade to put it together. It was one summer of It Takes a Village, born out of, in large part, frustration of what's out there, to try to lower the price, to think about sort of being more inclusive, to think about writing a book that a city kid can understand, right? And it's not about corn in Kansas. The econ books have this kind of fascination with sort of, farming, right, and wheat and corn, and there are pictures, and they're, what's the farmer doing? And it's just like, think about our kids. They have no clue. Examples of the automobile market. Well, our kids have no clue. They don't have cars. They don't know what it means to buy a car. So they don't know what it means to buy a house. Nobody buys a house. So it's just these fundamental things in the published material that we were struggling with. So we decided at some point we have to do something. We looked around. I'll show you again just for a couple of minutes what we've done. But it was sort of 5 of us, summer of 2020. We were all sitting at home. It was like, let's just do it. If we don't do it now, we'll never do it. We want to build material that our students and students like ours can grasp, can get the economics concepts with words and examples that they can relate to, and that it doesn't have to be formal. So our book is written incredibly informally, because we really don't want to call it a book. We want to call it reading. And then you do other stuff, right? You practice, you solve problems, you use kind of dynamic tools in the context of the course materials. So we went with a company called TopHat that is really provides mostly a technology platform to do all of these things and host all of these things, but it's sort of all inclusive. So it lives in a browser for a student, and for the faculty member, the writing is very simple markdown, right? For Lisa Subhash, it's kind of, it's easy, sort of, you type, you use hashtags here and there to get bold and change fonts and so on. So it's a sort of a relatively light markup kind of language. But we build questions in. So we have homework embedded that gets graded, and there's a grade book. I ask questions in class. So the other piece of it is that I'm teaching 250 students. I want everybody to have this. I don't want to think about their platform. So this is platform independent. In class, I say, okay, guys, I'm going to ask you a question now. And it's in the same platform. And they go on their TopHat, on their phones, or on their computers, on their tablets, and they answer a question. They get a participation point. So it's my way of quote taking attendance. Sometimes the questions have correct answers. Other times it's just getting their opinions. I feed it back to them in real time, little word cloud. They get a laugh out of it. Sort of breaks up some of the monotony. So it's really about building the class experience rather than the book per se, but clearly the book matters. For Eco 100, the formality of the book matters less. We are now in our second project for Eco 221, which is our first statistics class, more formal, but not as formal as our econometrics class or a graduate class might be. So here we are trying to be more formal. We are trying to prevent them from getting formulae from Wikipedia. That's exactly where they go. So we are trying to kind of, depending on who's working on what, we're trying to bridge that, do it here, don't go out when we recommend going out. And then TopHat as a company was very helpful to us because they had done a whole bunch of sort of market research and kind of just psychological, neurobiological stuff that said, this is what students can process. This is how much students can process. So literally they want topics that are about 1,600 words. That's really nothing. But their argument is, if you have a 15-page chapter and you tell an undergraduate you must read it, they will essentially not read it. So if you want them to read something seriously, think very hard about how much you want them to read and what you want them to read. And then make them answer questions in that context. Make them go out to a video in that context. So let me show you a little thing in this one chapter that is introducing another tool. We use GeoGebra, which is a graphing kind of tool, freeware out there, embedded, right? So very quickly, here's where am I gone? Okay, hopefully you see my browser. This is my current TopHat class. Here's a topic. The title of the chapter is Markets in Balance. I've got a chapter. That's, my students know that's what they need to read and answer a few questions. I've got a homework assignment that goes with this chapter that they will do after we are done. And in class, I present using slides because I've got 250, but I like scribbling. There are things that I don't like to do with just all formatted slides. So I'm able to scribble. It has a little sketchboard. I can annotate, and then I make that available to the students afterwards, and they can see my annotations and they know what I've scribbled and I know what I've canceled out. So just very simply, let's see if I can go full screen here. This is the quote chapter reading. And here's a graph from GeoGebra that they can muck around with. The reading, the words in the chapter are about shifting demand and supply curves. So just technical, this is a demand curve, that's a supply curve. So I want to shift the demand curve. What if people like the product more? Well, that's what happens here. And you can see what happens to that intersection between the two lines, which is what we're trying to teach them to do. Right? I can move the supply curve. Okay, so it's interactive. We encourage them to kind of do this in the context of this quote book and reading. Otherwise, it's much like what Anya showed. Here's another one, another sort of GeoGebra embedded thing. We want them to work on it. Here's another one. Here's a cute picture we got from somewhere. Lots of GeoGebra graphs because we want them moving things around. That's what this chapter is really about. Here's this intersection. So as you drag it, so goes the intersection, right? So these are little tools, obviously a little bit of kind of learning curve for us as well, but there were 4 or 5 of us working on this together, all sitting at home in our pajamas. It was kind of almost fun while we did it that summer. So because we did it in the summer and we implemented it in the following fall, it's rough. There are plenty of rough places, and we are now editing as we go, as we teach. We keep track of kind of what changes we're doing and so on. And TopHat allows us to do this sort of quite easily. Okay, I'm going to try to see. Here's a question. So this is a question in the context, and literally it's a yes, no, but it's just a way to prompt the student, say, wake up. Are you reading? They get some points. Often this one, there's no correct answer. So it's a participation point. These accumulate over the semester. They can see their points in the grade book. So they come and complain, but I didn't get credit for this, but I thought I had the right answer. So we want that. We want them to be a little bit anxious when they read this and not go, if I don't read it, who cares? Nobody will find out. Okay, so that's, let me close that. Then homework goes with it. And we've got some traditional kind of multiple choice. We've got some things that are quasi-graphing. We want them to click on points. Here you get points for saying, okay, this is the correct answer. I'm going to click on this. And that's easy for us because it's auto-graded, right? So given that I have 200 students, I have a TA, and we do have some questions at the end where, for example, let me just see if I can find one. This is my favorite question is about Sriracha. So they have to answer some numerical questions, but here's one where they do these graphs by hand, old school. We want them to practice, and then they upload, they scan, they upload. We grade them later because this is not auto-graded. And then very quickly again, finally, here's my slides. Let me present. All right, hopefully you guys see my whole screen. Yes, it just jumped into, okay, so it's just literally, I teach using this, but what's nice, I've got, oh, by the way, here's links to video. So I want them to listen to the noise of a real market because they don't have a clue what a market actually is. So the Chicago Mercantile Exchange is just about as noisy as this street market in Phnom Penh. Just that's the argument there. Here's my scribbles. I'm so bad with a pen on a computer screen that it looks like I'm an 8-year-old. They get a laugh out of it. Oh, it works just fine, but that's what I do. So I have a prepped slide that doesn't go all the way, and then as I'm talking, I fill in all of this stuff. So I'm going to show you one last thing and then stop. Here's an in-class question. I'm going to start the question. Here's the question. They are on their devices. They are now going to answer this question. In the figure, if the price is 20, there is A, excess supply, B, excess demand. Sometimes they're multiple choice, sometimes they write a word in. Usually these are for participation points only. They don't often know that, so they don't know whether there's a correct answer or not. I want them to think that there's a correct answer because I want them to think about it. I've had questions where they put the most ridiculous answers and then they laugh because they know they're getting back at me. And sometimes it's useful, sometimes not. But the idea is this is a way of ensuring that out of my 260 students, about 200 and something show up to class regularly, that they are thinking about things, they pull out their devices, they do it, and so on. Okay, so that's how we are using TopHat. Every chapter has a chapter, a homework, and in class. So there's this sort of framing that, in fact, we learned from TopHat as being, think of it, what do you want them to do before class? What do you want them to do in class? What do you want them to do after class? Right, so it's the chapter, it's the in class, it's the homework. Every topic is organized in that way. Then what's not, because we have so many students, we've got Gradebook right here. Currently, it does not sync with Blackboard, but that's just a pure Hunter IT procurement bureaucratic hitch. TopHat is ready to do it, and we're not letting them, right? Leave my frustration aside. But that's how we're doing things. So now, one of the reasons we adopted this approach was we weren't sure how much we could actually achieve in that summer. So what TopHat will let you do is take open resources. There are books out there. You can just borrow an entire chapter as long as you meet the copyright arrangements. Borrow a chapter from somebody else's book, some open source book. Bring it into this TopHat environment. TopHat has a marketplace where there are authors who sell stuff. You can buy one for your course, and then you can modify it as you wish, because the arrangement, the copyright arrangement with the author is only for you to purchase their book as it was on day one. After that, you can completely take it apart, right? And it becomes yours. It's no longer theirs. Okay, so the argument is you can't obviously resell that, but in my class, I might want not to start from scratch. I might go, here's a reasonable book. I don't like chapter 4. I'd redo chapter 7 I might move things around, and I'm allowed to do that using TopHat's sort of copyright rules and editorial rules. So that was the reason we thought these guys were, we were playing risk averse a little bit. We weren't sure how much we could do. In the end, we ended up doing everything anyway. It worked out very nicely for statistics again. Another group, very last minute, we had a new faculty member coming in. 4 or 5 people jumped in and did some stuff. We didn't write a full book. So there are topics that are straight up borrowed from open source resources, right? That are just pulled into TopHat. And there are other chapters that we have completely done ourselves. And that flexibility was helpful. So I'll stop there.